Hello and welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter. I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses in New York, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. The question today is, can you wholesale a Section 8 property? So first, I think first few minutes I'm going to talk about what Section 8 is, what the pros and cons are, how I look at Section 8, and then we're going to talk about how you can wholesale it, whether you can or you can't. So what is Section 8? Section 8 is a county or state local municipality system where they subsidize rent for people in economic need, right? So a lot of different municipalities have it. It might be a state thing. It might be a county thing. In my county, there's towns have their own Section 8. There might be multiple Section 8 I'm not going to say organizations. They're government entities, the divisions of the government. Divisions of the government? I don't know. It's a state aid program that happens, I think, throughout the country. And what it does is it pays part of the rent, almost never 100% of the rent, but sometimes close, part of the rent for people in economic need based on their income. So it changes, actually. So if their income would go up, I think quarterly they have to recertify, then they'd pay more of the rent and the Section 8 would pay less. But it pays part of the rent, sometimes a huge portion of the rent. That's what Section 8 is. Let's talk about the pros and cons of Section 8. So when I first started doing rentals back in 2004, I was all enamored by Section 8, right? Because the advantage of Section 8 is that you're getting a huge chunk of the rent from the government, right? I used to get checks. Now I have a Section 8 tenant now where they wire it directly to me, ACH transfer into my account. So it's great, right? Because you know you're getting paid, right? The pandemic happens, no one cares. Person loses a job, you're going to get that portion of the rent paid to you. The cons, right? The negatives are that you have to. They have a number. Every area has a number that they'll pay for a certain property. So they'll pay a certain amount for a 1-bedroom, a certain amount for a 2-bedroom, a certain amount for a 3-bedroom, right? And the person who qualifies for Section 8 will qualify for different size properties depending on their family size. So they might qualify for a 1-bedroom, and they get something called a voucher for a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, a 4-bedroom if they have a big family, and the Section 8 office will match up landlords who want to rent to Section 8 tenants with tenants who meet those vouchers. So the cons are that number that they pick may be less or more than market rent, right? In my area right now, it's less than market rent, right? So I think they're going to pay almost $1,900 for a 2-bedroom. I could probably go out of the market and get $2,200 for a 2-bedroom, maybe even more, depending if it's a big 2-bedroom. So you have to weigh how much you're going to get versus how much you can get if you don't get a Section 8 tenant. Another con is that I've rented to many Section 8 tenants, and I've had great Section 8 tenants, and I've had terrible full paying tenants. But overall, I would say that the level of quality of the Section 8 tenant is lower. I've certainly evicted more Section 8 tenants for not paying their portion of the rent than I have evicted free market tenants, percentage-wise. It's a lower level tenant. It's somebody in an economic need, and it's somebody who's really not contributing that much towards their monthly rent, and they don't feel bought in that much. That is a con. So those two cons, right? Whether it's in some areas, Section 8 is going to pay you what market rent is. So for me, in my opinion, I try not to get Section 8 tenants only because I can do much better in the free market. But if I was in an area, and every area is different, where they pay market rent or maybe even above market rent, I would certainly go for a Section 8 because the advantage of having that money come in every month from the government may outweigh all the other disadvantages. Okay, so that is how Section 8 works. So I assume the question that I got, this was from a comment, was how can you wholesale a Section 8 property, meant a property that has an existing Section 8 tenant in it. So the real issue is not Section 8. Section 8 doesn't care who buys the property. They don't care. Their job is to make sure that people who need rentals are getting into apartments and getting subsidized. The issue is that you are trying to wholesale an occupied property, which I've dealt with before and I'll go into now in more detail, right? So that is a challenge. So the first challenge you're going to have is actually to get in. Now, you would think a Section 8 tenant, or most tenants, would allow you to go in. But when you express, if you express to the tenant or to the seller, and the seller tells it to the tenant that, hey, I'm a buyer and I'm looking for this property, can you show it to me? Most tenants, a vast majority, are not going to be cooperative, right? They do not want status quo to change. They are afraid if someone buys the property, they're going to kick them out. So it's going to be difficult, right? Some tenants are fine with it, but a lot of tenants don't want anything to change. So I personally don't recommend that you tell the tenant or you have the seller tell the tenant that you're a buyer, right? I say that I'm looking to do a quick inspection, maybe for an insurance company. That usually alleviates that problem. So you have to get in to see it, and that could be a challenge to get in to see it. Certainly, if the tenant's not paying rent, or there's any kind of animosity between the tenant and the owner, it gets harder to get in to see it. So first of all, the challenge is getting in to see it. Second of all, the problem with wholesaling is that you can close with no problem on a property that's occupied with a tenant, but many cash buyers do not want to buy properties with tenants. Now, some do, and some of them are even landlords that want a Section 8 tenant in there. So I'm not saying you don't, but you have to understand that my buyers list does not have a lot of landlords. It has some, but it doesn't have a lot. So most of my buyers on my buyers list are not interested in buying something with a tenant in it. Now, I'm right near New York City. New York City is horrible when it comes to evicting tenants. It could take years, right? And there are professional tenants who know the bullshit system, make up fake pay stubs, or even if they make money, they go and move into an apartment and then don't pay rent and can stay there for 2.5 or 3 years paying no rent. So people that have been burned, or people that know about this, they look at it even in Nassau County, or Nassau, Suffolk, where I work, which is not as bad at all, right? In general, if it's not the pandemic and things are normal, I can get a tenant out in 3-4 months. But people have that in their mind that this is going to be a problem, or they've had a bad experience. And some tenants that know how to work the system, even in my area, where they can stretch out a little longer. So they don't want occupied properties. They look at it as a big hindrance. So the most people on my list do not want occupied properties. I do have people that have taken occupied properties, and I've wholesaled occupied properties, probably dozens. But you have to understand that a lot of buyers are going to balk at that issue. They do not want to deal with a tenant. Now, let me talk about some thinking that goes on that people don't understand. So many sellers will go, why wouldn't you want the property? It's producing rent. It's great, right? But the truth is that almost every buyer, including myself, if I'm buying something to rent, I want to screen my own tenants, right? It's nice that you tell me that the guy's making payments. And the truth is, even if you show me proof that he's making payments, but the truth is, I bought properties where a guy who made payments regularly stopped making payments to me. It happens. I want to screen my own tenants, right? And every retail buyer most retail buyers will feel the same way. So in general, when a seller tells me, hey, I have a non-cooperating tenant, I love that, right? I'm attracted to that deal because I think that A, the guy doesn't have an option to sell it retail, list it on the market, because almost no one's going to buy it if it's got an uncooperative tenant, and that means he can't show it also. And B, most cash buyers, most people that compete with me are not going to buy it anyway. So I now feel like I am in a small group of people that are able to buy this property from him and solve this problem. So I love buying properties with non-cooperating tenants. I love it. Right now, it sounds crazy, right? Because I have to deal with all this bullshit of dealing with the tenant. So, and I always go to the tenant and offer them money to leave first. That's always my first best, but my first approach. But very often they don't agree, and sometimes I have to go through the system. But I have to put in to my number that I'm paying for it enough room that I can live with that as, worst case scenario, and taking them all the way to eviction and paying all the money for the eviction, which is not cheap. And if there's enough room, I will do it. So I buy properties with uncooperative tenants all the time. Some of them Section 8 tenants. But you have to know your buyers list, right? If you have a very small buyers list, I would ask them, would you buy something? I would say most people do not want non-cooperating tenants in their property. Most. But you have to know your buyers list. And if you have somebody who loves that, like me, you could sell somebody like me. So again, but it's always a function of price, right? I have to figure out worst case scenario. It's going to take a long time, longer than I think, and I'm going to have to either give the tenant a chunk of cash to leave, or I'm going to have to go through the eviction process, wait as long as that takes, and pay as much as it costs. So it's all a function of price. Everything is a function of price. Everything, right? I was very foolish when I first started this business, where I thought I wasn't going to buy properties that did this or did that or like that. I was an idiot, right? The truth is, everything's a function of price. Real estate is a commodity today, right? Because of the internet, everybody has access to a lot of information. Everybody has access to any deal that's out there. Simple. You just post it up and it shows up. And the issue is that if you get it cheap enough, you can wholesale it or close on it and make money on it that way. Whatever it is, it's always a function of price. So I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in how I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. With a bunch of ways I can help you there. If you're interested in my course that teaches how to do what I do, go to howtoflipnewyorkcourse.com. If you're interested in coaching, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. What else? Oh, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on any platform, please give me a thumbs up like. The likes really help my SEO and lets more people see my videos, which allows me to keep going live 5 times a week. And comments. So please keep comments coming with questions. This came from a comment I got yesterday. I couldn't even find the comment, but I saw it and it just sparked something in my head. Listen, I go live 5 times a week. Sometimes I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about. That's the truth. So your comments help me. There are no bad comments. If it's a simple answer, I'll just reply with an answer. If it's a topic that I covered in depth, I'll send you links to a video or videos on it. And if it's a new question, this was a new question I never had been asked before, and it's a great question, or something I haven't covered in a while, I'll do a video on it. So please keep the comments coming. I really appreciate you watching. Thank you very, very much.